May all that you stand for and that we stand for be preserved under the providence of God for the happiness of mankind.
The trouble is caused by unthinking people who carelessly throw away ageless ideals as if they were old and outworn machinery.
But it is the values of individual liberty, equality before the law and the supremacy of people over the state to which we can always with confidence return as a powerful and uniting force.
Australia is not a secular country. It is a free country.
Well, good evening and welcome to Pellowe Talk. I'm back in the studio. We've finished the renovations of the office. The storeroom has been converted to a really nice professional control suite, and now the whole studio and office is one combined building, so that's good, and it's great to be back. And as you can see, I've moved in a little bit more and made one wall of this fantastic flexible space more permanently mine. So hopefully you can get used to seeing this, and a special welcome to Queen Liz, who's always welcome in the Commonwealth of Australia, to true patriots. Well, a bit of a kerfuffle has happened on Twitter, as is oft to happen. And we have a great article from Alexandra Marshall on The Good Source today. And its title is "Online Abuse is Okay if the Left Do It." I'm going to have a bit of a chat with you about this because this is the topic of the show tonight. One rule for the left, another rule for conservatives. The message could not be any clearer after the despicable behaviour of Guardian Australia journalist Ben Eltham over the last few days. Previously independent MP Craig Kelly joined Clive Palmer's United Australia Party. As part of the UAP's election campaign, the party sent out thousands of SMS messages to a random group of people. This is a perfectly legal and common practice among political parties in Australia. In ordinary times, these messages get deleted or ignored. On this occasion, the left decided to mount an abusive online campaign against Craig Kelly in retaliation for the great torture of having to read an SMS. Their hate for Kelly is a matter of public record. His speeches in defence of liberty have caused outrage within the Labor Party and its supporters, although why they take such personal offence at one man standing against big state tyranny and the abuse of human rights is anyone's guess. The Liberal Party similarly begrudge him because he poses a serious risk to their re-election campaign. Kelly is everything the coalition should be, and his existence serves as a tide marker for how far they've receded down the beach. All we know for sure is that if these political opponents can't get Kelly cancelled, they're happy to use social media as a weapon to invade his personal life. On August 31st, Crikey News posted a tweet recommending that people mass spam Craig Kelly's mobile phone number, which they subsequently provided in the article. This broke Twitter's community safety policy by deliberately using Twitter to orchestrate online harassment against another person. The Crikey News tweet reads, "Who's up for a mass act of political trolling? Since Craig Kelly is spamming people's mobiles, why not give him a dose of his own medicine? Bernard Keane offers several ways to hack Kelly and the UAP, and the contact details to do it, unlocked." And there's a link to their article. Alexandra Marshall continues, "There is no room for misunderstanding. This was an undisputed doxing for the purpose of targeted harassment against an individual." The author of the Crikey article, Bernard Keane, has since complained that he has been abused, quotation marks, by people replying to his article. Quote, "Far-right conspiracy theories with fake photo and 37 followers, just the Russian bot I like getting abused by," end quote, said Keane. Keane put up his own tweet doxing Kelly, which also should have resulted in an immediate suspension of his account. The Guardian Australia's Ben Eltham went one step further and reblogged the Crikey article with Craig Kelly's phone number, along with an invitation to his 52,000 followers to send Kelly a text. Many of them obliged, dutifully sending obscene messages. While Eltham didn't ask them to be abusive, he must have guessed it would be a predictable outcome of his actions. Once he became aware of the nature of the messages being sent, he doubled down on his invitation, rather than stopping. These tweets from Crikey, Keane and Eltham all remain up. Suffice to say, if a Conservative had posted the same thing about a female Labor MP, not only would their online account be taken down, there's every chance of police involvement over misusing a carriage service to intimidate and harass. The left media are, as we know, untouchable. While Crikey's tweet might have been borderline, Eltham's was not. He directly violated Twitter safety guidelines and was reported by thousands of Twitter users. And in the article, there's a link to those policies where you can see them. You're not allowed to post personal information. If this had been anyone else's account, they would have been under a permanent suspension almost immediately, as Twitter prioritizes breaches in privacy. Instead, Twitter has chosen not to touch Eltham in clear violation of its own terms of service. Is it because he works for The Guardian Australia, or simply because Twitter thinks that it's perfectly okay to harass and intimidate political personalities that it disagrees with? Either way, Twitter owes its users an explanation regarding the inconsistent policing of its terms, especially when personal safety is in question. And there's an embedded tweet there from Ben Eltham. Social media might appear to be the internet's version of the Wild West, but there are some firm rules that cannot be crossed. Doxing is one of them. Doxing occurs when a user posts private details about another user related to their identity or contact information. It is illegal in some parts of the world where social media servers are housed and expressly forbidden by community guidelines. Bizarrely, this is not the most outrageous part of the saga. Ex-Liberal candidate, Indigenous advocate, Sky News contributor and author Warren Mundine vented his frustration at Eltham's appalling behaviour by calling Eltham something nasty in a tweet. We're all adults and Twitter is not daycare. If adults want to insult each other, they are free to do so. Eltham himself made a post showing that he was unconcerned by the comment. Instead of punishing Eltham for breaking some pretty serious ethical codes and possibly violating the law regarding carriage services, it was Warren Mundine who found himself in trouble. Labor turned around and asked the government to remove Mundine from his position on the SBS board. This is the same Labor Party that did not have a problem with Eltham inciting abuse online. If Mundine's tweet was in breach of the SBS board's code of conduct, what was Eltham's to The Guardian Australia? One was mildly offensive, the other potentially criminal. Mundine has apologised for his outburst, but Eltham has not. Both his tweet and the article it links to remain published. Labor has since whinged to the Minister for Communications, Paul Fletcher, that the Governor-General should remove Mundine from his position at the SBS. The rest of Twitter's blue-tick journalists were quick to support efforts to cancel Mundine. Eltham has returned to gloat about his victory. Quote, "For the record, I was not offended by Warren Mundine's tweet, and I defend his right to freedom of speech. We should try and keep our public sphere free of abuse and concentrate on the big issues. Also, please send only nice text messages to Craig Kelly," end quote, said Eltham. A strange message from someone who deliberately set out to abuse a political rival. This is the future of politics in Australia if we allow the government to encourage social media companies like Twitter to use their community guidelines as a tool of political censorship rather than a genuine level playing field for its users. Maybe we should thank Eltham. He has shown us the inequality of the social order we live under, an environment where the left are free to intimidate the right into silence. Thanks, Alexandra, for that article. And joining me now is the man of the hour, Warren Mundine. Warren, welcome to The Good Source. Great to have you with us tonight.
Yeah, great to see you, David. Yeah.
Now, was that just a terrible mistake from you? I mean, it's kind of predictable when you, as a conservative, behave badly on Twitter of all places in public, you are going to be taken to the woodshed for it.
Look, okay, I could have put it in a better way. I could have used a different word, so I plead guilty on that. The problem is that I'm very strong about this issue of doxing, about abusing people. I know of a person who committed suicide in Brisbane because of this, a couple of years ago, and I know that people have been even abused within different political parties and have attempted suicide and have been under a lot of stress and a lot of problems. What Craig Kelly did is what every political party does. I get heaps of those SMS messages from all different political parties, and as you said, and as the article said, I ignore them, and that's it. Now, but this idea that and especially a journalist can go out there and then start running a campaign of going out and and knowing that people were going to go out there and abuse them is not the way that we should be running politics. If you disagreement, that's fine. You have your arguments, you have your debates. You don't go out there and put out a person's a phone number, their address, or whatever. And no matter what their political persuasion is, I don't care if it's Labor, Liberal, National, or whatever, they should not get a cop that sort of abuse.
100% agree. And you're right. This is very serious behaviour. It's not just rude and repulsive. It's actually ending up in people taking their own lives. And this isn't a joke, and it's not a laughing matter. And that's why Twitter introduces and implements and why society applauds good community guidelines, which say, hey, you don't get to incite a mob against anybody for any reason, no matter how much you think they deserve it. But, we had, I know of people who've, and we all do, I think, know of people who have sadly died of suicide following these kind of online mobs. And we hope that the people we know who are targeted by them are able to withstand the storm and be resilient. But you just never know what's going on in somebody's personal life, and to make their personal life fair game and a public target is just callous, cruel, and criminal, quite frankly.
Well, I believe so too, and I've been campaigning on this with Erin Molan and that for a number of years. In fact, if people would have seen that 60-minute program of Erin and myself, I tried to commit suicide after receiving all this abusive attacks, racist attacks. And it's really funny. I got the racist attacks from people who usually had a hashtag I'm anti-racist or in a blue bloody drop on their stuff. And this is the damage and this is the danger that can happen to people. Now, I didn't
know that, Warren. I haven't seen that story. I might have to go watch it. But this, I didn't know that. No wonder you reacted so viscerally to this. It's still not okay, and you still apologise. No. But it makes a little bit more sense that you actually feel for what Craig Kelly's potentially going through, and other people like him.
Yeah, well, it's not only Craig Kelly; it's a number of people, and it's a number of people out in the public eye, and it's a number of the people in politics. And that look, we can have our arguments. We're in a liberal democracy. We can have our disagreements and we can have our debates. But this is what got me, that a journalist could go out there and do such a thing. And I can tell you how when you get savage like that, what it does to a person. Because and as I said, at the back of my house, I have a 20-metre drop. I went out the back to throw myself over, and my wife had to help me and stuff like that. This is the sort of danger that these people do and get out there. And really, I think people should have a lot more common sense, especially a journalist supposed to be reported. If he wants to go out there and have campaigns, he's quite free to do that. But don't call yourself a journalist. Call yourself an activist. Call yourself join a political party or whatever, and do those things. But
Yep.
going out there and opening the door for such behaviour can end in very dangerous situations.
What were you targeted for when leading up to that event, that dark chapter, when you thought about taking your life?
Well, it's really bizarre because I have very good, even though I left the Labor Party, I have very good relationships with members of the Labor Party. I have very good relationships with members of the Labor Party parliamentary wing, and I also at state and federal levels. And you would not believe this abuse, and it happens to a lot of people like myself who are conservative. You see it with Jacinta Price. You see the most dreadful racist attacks from people. Even Stan Grant copped it when he didn't toe the line with the left. And I just find it's disgraceful how people behave like this, and then sit down and say that they're civilised human beings. I just find it disgraceful. And I've campaigned on this, that they need to start looking at these things being criminal offences, because people have died from them and people have suffered from them and mentally. And even if they haven't died, it's taken them years, if not forever, to recover from these things. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so strong about it. I've seen it happen to people who don't deserve this. I don't think I've seen anyone who deserves this sort of stuff. It's like it's like a mob, a lynch mob coming at people, and it's just endless. Like with the comments that was made about Erin Moreland and her family, and it's just disgraceful. And I just thought, what sort of human being does this? Yeah.
Warren, you said your wife came out and intervened, and praise God she did. Was that a quick and easy recovery, or was it complicated, slow? And
it's not a recovery. Anyone who goes through these processes, you don't really recover, to be quite honest. It's always there, and things trigger you, and hence probably my language. It was wrong, and I should have chose a different word, like you're a dipstick or something. But I just jerk and a few other little choice words. But I just find this totally bizarre, and I just cannot understand, as a civilised, modern human being can actually go out there and do these type of things.
Yep. I've recently learned of a quote. And I might think of who said it. But, we on the right side of politics like to talk about free speech, and we hate hearing about banned speech or hate speech. And we don't want to see who can do that. We don't want to know who has the tough question is who gets the power to ban what. And this great quote says, there is a speech there is an idea which stops all ideas, and that is the only idea which should be stopped. And that's essentially saying, the point of free speech is to allow debate and exploration of topics and challenges and criticisms, but complete lack of restraint on speech has a restraining effect on speech. And so if we want speech to be unrestrained, we have to know what types of speech to restrain. And the kind of intimidation that leads to somebody considering taking their own life is obviously going to have a chilling effect on debate. It's obviously going to end many people who might otherwise be brave enough to stick their head above the parapet and speak up for firm and sincerely formed convictions. And so I'm with you. I think this kind of behaviour, the inciting of an online mob and targeted harassment, especially by somebody with such influence and profile, should be considered premeditated, criminal, and should be punished so that it can be prevented in the spirit of making sure that social media, Twitter, and the public square in general is as free and open a platform as possible. It might seem back to front, but I think if we think about it, those of us who believe in absolute free speech, and that's not me, obviously, might have to think that that is actually a self-defeating objective. What are your thoughts?
Look, it wouldn't be a great world that we have, and I look, despite all the issues and everything we have globally, and we've seen what's happening in Afghanistan and that, I have a very positive view of human beings when we get together, and it's about and in our liberal democracies, we've always believed in people putting their views forward and debating. I'll give you an example. When I was deputy mayor of Dubbo, there was a bloke who wanted to set up a Klux Klan a chapter in Canberra. Now, I was rung up by the ABC, and they said, "Would you like to talk about that?" And I said, "Sure." And they asked the president at the time of the Civil Liberties group, John Norton, who's a Dubbo person too, a lawyer, and we both said that he has a right to talk about wanting to do that. I totally disagree with what he wants, but if we cannot defeat him in regard to a sensible, common sense debate dealing with facts and figures, then we're hopeless. If you cannot do that, then you're hopeless. If you believe that you are on the right side of things, and everyone does, they believe that whether they're left or right or whatever, they believe they're on the right side. If you cannot articulate your debate and take these people on, then what do you really believe in if you can't explain what you believe in?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know that I would want Ku Klux Klan to.
Never do I. No, never do I. Look, it's.
I know what you're saying. We should be able to defeat them on the basis of
we did. The thing never went ahead because the common sense of the people out there in Western New South Wales sort of said, "Well, this bloke's a bit of a clown," and doesn't he know the history of the Ku Klux Klan and the dreadful stuff that they did? In Australia, in fact, we're pretty sensible people. They tried to ban the Communist Party, and the public voted against it. And guess what? We had 20-something years of Menzies in that process because people didn't want the Communist Party. In fact, I don't until recently. I didn't even know the Communist Party was still around until I saw the Black Lives Matter marches. People aren't stupid, and they should not be treated as being stupid. They can understand a discussion. They can sit down and think about it, and they can make a decision about what they're going to do.
Well, I'll tell you who has been treating the people like they're stupid, and that's the governments of the states, territories, and Commonwealth, which have been fully censoring any kind of dissent, debate, or discussion of anything, any criticism of public health messages. That's why Craig Kelly was ejected from the Liberal Party and not welcome there, because debate isn't welcome. Challenging the cherry-picked experts isn't welcome at all. And I think it's infantilizing. It's really treating the people of Australia like infants, that they can't judge for themselves, read contradictory scientific experts and come up with a conclusion. I think, like you said, when you've got something as starkly stupid as the Ku Klux Klan, it's really obvious people can make a good choice because we're common sense people. But if the truth isn't so starkly obvious, maybe it shouldn't be imposed with this degree of authoritarianism. Maybe there should be, I don't know, liberal values to actually let people choose for themselves what experts they're going to believe and what scientific evidence is going to make more sense and inform their discussions.
Oh, that's right. You know, you go out and you do research. You think about things. You use your life experiences. You look at the experts who are out there talking from all sides. And that. And let's be honest. They do have differing opinions. And you sit there and it's like with my medical doctor in that, you know, he puts forward he sits there and talks to me, and he goes through my health stuff, and we talk about it, and then we go then we say what are we going to do? But at the end of the day, it's me that makes the decision.
Yep.
I decide whether I'm going to go ahead with the medication or I'm going to not go ahead with it. I decide if I'm going to have the operation or not have the operation. Now, in most cases, you do trust the doctor and you trust the medical advice in regard to these areas. But at the end of the day, it's still your decision.
It should be. Obviously, we're seeing a great deal of effort being put into the coercion and influence to push people into a certain direction, and it's still technically not coerced. But however, we're seeing the state premiers basically saying unless you can prove that you've had a vaccination, you're not going to get the freedoms back that we took away from you. So I'd love it if we could get back to it being between a patient and a doctor, what kind of medical treatment and risk management they're going to take individually.
Well, the best interview I saw was I was driving to work one day and had the radio on, and they had a doctor talking, and he talked common sense. Now I'll declare that I'm still a member of the Liberal Party, and I'll declare that I have got the vaccination. AstraZeneca, and I've got my flu shots, and I get tested every so often because to make sure that I'm not got the virus, and I'm not going to be going out there and infecting people. So I declare that up front. But this doctor was very smart. He was also, he said, look, had people ringing in and telling them, well, I got this chronic illness, I got this and that and that, and he said, well, this is what you should be doing. But the first thing you should do, because I'm not your doctor, I'm only listening to what you're telling me. You go to your doctor. He or she knows your medical background and your history and everything like that. Have that conversation with them and then make your decision.
Yep. Now,
that to me is common sense. Now, I say to people, look, I got my vaccination. I think we should have people should get vaccinations, but talk to your doctor, have a good conversation, and go through all the different avenues and everything like that, and then make your decision.
Yeah, 100%. Christine says, the government can't take my God-given freedoms. They are not God. Only problem is the government can, and governments throughout history have. The government shouldn't. The government can't do it validly. And they can't get permission to, but they certainly can pass fraudulent laws which do impose. And that's why you have things like the American Revolution to shake off the shackles of tyranny, because they recognized that these rights are inalienable, but they had been alienated. They had been transgressed by the King of England, and they needed to change government. We should probably not be loading muskets, and let me rephrase that, certainly not.
Certainly not. They're a bit out of date too, I think.
But you know what? It is appropriate to vote for people who represent your values and stop voting for people who promise to and fail to. And that's essentially how we have a political revolution. We can do it, and if we're in the minority, we're going to have to work on educating people before the election. Warren,
also, just to finish on that, look, I'm an example of that. I was in the Labor Party. I grew up in a Labor Party family. We were working class people and that. And it wasn't until about I'm a bit of a slow learner. You've got to be patient with me, David. It didn't take me till 2012 to realise that it wasn't the party that represented the workers anymore. We had a very common sense, laid back, larrikin type culture in Australia, and it is slowly disappearing. And I have some great mates. I remember I went to school in the 60s, a primary school, and we had immigrants coming from Italy and all over the world coming to Australia, and we used to have punch-ups in the schoolyard. I don't recommend this. I don't think it was good, but these people were and still are my friends. Here we are 55 years later, and we're lifetime friends in that. And we've become great mates. And because we have this culture here in Australia, unfortunately it's slowly disappearing, that people can, discuss things and argue things and debate them and do things and that. And we got on with life, and we took, I was going to say a naughty word there too, but we took jokes at ourselves. We took took fun of each other, and that we all knew that they were jokes. We knew they're not. These are a bloke actually meant to harm us or hurt. We all understood that, and we give it back to them, and they go to us, and this is how life got on here in Australia. Yep. It was really good. In fact, I recommend people go and watch the old 1960 movie We're a Weird Mob, and that just showed the larrikinism and how Australia developed. We had these incredible migrants who come out here and helped post Second World War, and even the few that come out before that, helped build this nation. Yeah. And mixing together, we've got these incredible institutions, the Westminster parliamentary system, which I think is probably, I might be a bit biased, but I think it's the best system. I look at all the other ones. I take a Chilean approach to it. I say, well, it's probably the worst systems of government in the world. But I tell you what, when you look at all the rest, it's not a bad system.
That's right. Yes.
And when we make mistakes, and even in the legal system, and even they admit that they can make mistakes. That's why you have an appellate court to try and fix these things. And the public, they may make in the politics. That's why we have these elections, because sometimes they can fool us, as Abraham Lincoln said, but they can't fool us all the time. So we quickly recover from that and fix it.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Want to get you to comment on the video, join the conversation with your thoughts, your questions, and your comments, your opinions on what we're talking about. Share it with your friends, get more people to watch it, and that will be really good. Also, a plug for the website, head to goodsource.news, sign up to the newsletters there. I do apologise, it's been about a month or more since we've sent an update, so you're definitely not going to get daily inbox spam with articles, etc. But it's only a matter of time until big tech forces us off their platforms, and so you need to have us connected to your inbox when that happens. And a big thanks to the Good Source sponsors who just put their hand in the pocket for $5, $10, $20 a month and help keep this show and many other independent conservative voices coming to you, free of mainstream media, free of taxpayer funding, and certainly free of big tech censorship. So one of the comments we've got, Warren, I just need to get that banner off, is from Rena K. And Rena says mandates will disproportionately, and she's talking about vaccine mandates, disproportionately affect Aboriginal people. What are your thoughts on that statement?
Well, look, one of the things I'm pretty disgusted with that is the government's last year now. Look, I'm forgiving in the first stage of this because we didn't know what it was, and everyone was panicking, and everyone was going, and running around. Some of us like headless chooks and that. But we've got now 18 months of experience of this stuff. Look, in the beginning they said that Aboriginal communities were going to be a priority, and it was going to be a priority because of the chronic illnesses that our community suffer from. Diabetes, respiratory problems. We're big smokers. I'm not a smoker, but a lot of my friends and family members are, and we have drinking and so on. And you see, and people living in poverty. So that's why it had to have a priority. Now, we were all thinking that was okay because we didn't see what was happening in those communities. We didn't have reports any COVID going there. So I do praise the Aboriginal Medical Service and all that for doing those things, and the government agency. But what's happened in the last few weeks has really showed, and this is, I'll put my hand up as guilty as get. I wasn't watching as well. I looked at the statistics, what was going on in these communities, and you've got Western Australia at 4, it was down 4 to 5% people getting vaccine, and then in New South Wales and in Queensland and other places, it was about 8 to 11%. Those levels are dangerously too low, and so what's happened is now we've seen the problems that have happened in Western New South Wales now. And this is another thing that happened to me this week. It was only 2 days ago. It was on the same day the tweet happened. My wife walked in and said to me, they've named the person who died in Dubbo. And I said, so what was their name? And they said, do you know the Duns? And I said, yeah, we was up there with the football clubs and the rugby league clubs and that, travelling around the bush. And the Duns they're really good friends of mine. And then I said, what was his first name? And he said, Gary. And you could have knocked me out with a feather. And this is why we've got to have, and it made me very angry with the mismessaging, if you're a football player or you're a celebrity, you get in and out of these places. We're not, anyone who says to me that we're all in this together, I'll tell you now, I'm just going to scream at them because they're not. We're seeing businesses losing their livelihood. I've got mates of mine who have just walked away from their business, just handed the keys over and gone. They're under the mental health issues of our children is just going through the roof. But you don't hear about that stuff. And you don't hear, and this is why. You don't
hear about that in the daily press briefings?
Never. Suicide rates have gone up, and attempted suicide rates have just gone through the roof. Self-harm is even just, and it's across Australian society. I don't know whether you're black, white, green, pink, or purple. It's happening, and this is what scares me about the late process of actually getting into these Aboriginal communities. Look, I've got to say they've done a great job in the last week or two. They're working. They're doing it the right way. They're actually not going out and beating people up and saying you've got to do this. They've actually got people going talking to people and chatting with them, just like I just said then. I believe in getting the vaccinations and but talk to your doctor, get your doctor's advice, look, do your research, do your stuff, and then make your decision. I can't tell you.
I think it's really important, Warren. I think it's really important for those people who have a problem with the vaccine, hesitation, concern, objection, or refusal. I think it's really important for the sake of credibility to allow other people to make a different decision. I mean, even just rhetorically, it's not like we can force them to not take it any more than they should force us to take it. But if we just say, look, you make your own decision. I've got some information if you're interested. You've got some information. I'm interested. And then you make your decision and I'll make mine, and more power to you. We lose credibility if we start telling people what to do.
Well, this is the problem I think a lot of Australians are having at the moment, and this is why the hesitancy has gone out. Even people who would have got the vaccine, this hesitancy because of the mixed messaging. Like they said, that children under 12 don't have to worry about them because it's very rare for them to get COVID and they don't need the vaccine. And then you get the Premier coming out of Queensland the other day and saying, well, I'm not going to open the borders until they're all vaccinated. Well, what's the real message here?
Yes.
And look, I'm not going to pretend I'm a doctor, and like most Australians, I'm not, and I don't understand a lot of these things, but I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
Don't treat me like I'm stupid, and come out with all this mixed messaging.
And they certainly have treated us like we're stupid. We've got Tia and Barbara here saying pretty much the same thing, that doctors will literally lose their license if they say anything against it. And Barbara says, how can they get their doctor's advice when if the doctor says anything against the vaccine, they can lose their medical licenses? I know doctors, and I speak to doctors off the record, and they tell me that APRA, their regulating authority for medical practitioners, are strictly banning doctors from criticising or publishing any criticisms. That's not science. That's not science at all. Science involves asking questions and attempting to disprove a hypothesis. That is the scientific method. And to tell scientists they can't criticize somebody else's verdict and thinking and research is just politics. It's not science.
Well, one of the funniest things, and we've seen it across a number of areas across this area. Look, I'm not a scientist. I'm only a high school. I studied high school science and that. But we were taught that science is a question.
Right.
You ask the question, why? Remember Sumner Miller, why is it so?
Yep.
And then you question it, and you go, and then you work on it. And how many times you've seen things that were said in the 1950s or the 40s or whatever, 100 years ago, that this is scientifically fine, and then later on they found it wasn't. And so this is why science is always evolving. It's always testing itself. And I was taught that, if I was a scientist, I come up with a hypothesis, and then I'd prove it wrong.
Yep.
And if I couldn't prove it wrong, then it has some sound base.
Yep.
And this is the problem that we're having now, that you've got to be in the club. You've got to be in this club. Well, science isn't a club. Medicine isn't a club. It's about asking those questions. Why is it so? Why does this person suffer this way? Why does his bone break this way? And then you work it to come up with how you fix things and get medicine. And it's evolving all the time.
Yes,
it's evolving all the time. Now, as I said, I keep it saying, I would like everyone to have the vaccine, but I say to people, at the end of the day, it's your decision. Talk to your doctor, have that conversation, do your research, and then make your decision.
Yep. Yeah, well said. Do your research and make your decision. We've got this graph here that Senator Jared Rennick found and shared on Facebook with the comment, interesting. And in it, we can see a map of Africa, the continent of Africa, and the very northern nations are shaded brown, and the very southern nations are shaded brown, and Madagascar and one of the eastern nations, is shaded brown. But all of Central Africa is shaded blue. And then we've got two line graphs and a brown line graph with very high peaks and troughs going up and down, represents the nations which do not have regular use of ivermectin as an antiparasitic. So that's regular use of ivermectin. But the blue shaded nations in Central Africa, which do routinely have wide use across the population of ivermectin, they actually have a very, very low and flat line graph. And that's representing the deaths per 100,000 people in population because of COVID. And so what that graph is saying is that the use of ivermectin in these nations seems to have a very strong correlation with prevention of COVID deaths in the population generally. That's before people even get sick. It's being very well prevented. Now, this kind of data is nothing new. For those people that a radical leftist would accuse of being an anti-vaxxer simply because you don't swallow without eating, we've basically been hearing this for ages. And Warren, this kind of evidence and the complete silence on this from the government, if not outright mockery and rejection of these kind of treatments and therapies, this makes me believe that the government isn't at all sincere or trustworthy when they say they're trying to look after our health. This is a cheap pharmaceutical. It's off patent. It's widely available. There's decades and decades of data telling us that it's safe in combinations with other medication. And we've got Australian, globally renowned Australian experts advocating this. Now, your comment is, disappointment that the vaccine hasn't been rolled out in Indigenous communities. Well, I stand with you. If they've promised to do something and failed to do it, then they're not really demonstrating any follow-through, any integrity in that commitment that they said they had. It seems like it's mere lip service. But what's worse is these really easy things. I mean, there's possibly a valid explanation why they couldn't do the vaccine rollout like they promised. Maybe there isn't, but maybe there is. But there's no excuse for pretending there isn't wide, ready, easy, cheap availability of ivermectin with known safety for it. I think it just smacks of, and look, I'm not going to try and explain the government. I mean, that'll just become a conspiracy theory. And I don't know, so it would be just a theory. But what it does say to me is that I don't trust the government. They haven't done everything within their power that's reasonable, affordable, and possible.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to stand here and defend the government or any government because I've seen some stupid things done. And also, as a human being, how you can let babies die, and we know a couple of premiers let that happen. They wouldn't let them across the border, and is just beyond belief to me. Yeah. I don't know why they didn't let them across the border. What, they thought they were going to get infected by COVID? They were dying, and we see people dying, and I just can't explain that type of stuff.
Yep.
In regard to getting back to the point, and you listen to McGowan and that, he thinks he can kill and destroy COVID, and yet we know in the history of humanity that no one's ever been able to destroy any virus. It's about how you manage it and live with it. I grew up in the days with you got measles, you got mumps, and you got a whole wide range of different things. But I'm not going to. I stick to my argument. My argument is, go and talk to your doctor. Have that conversation with them, and then make your decision. And then when you make your decision, that's up to you. This is and you can, but have that conversation with your doctor because the doctor can explain it a lot better than me in regard to.
And likewise, certainly better than me as well.
Yeah.
One of the myths that's out there that I love to disabuse people of is that ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and those other off-patent pharmaceuticals are not banned, are not illegal. You just have to go to your doctor and ask for a private prescription. You will pay full price. It won't go through Medicare. It won't go through the pharmaceutical benefits scheme. But it is ages old. It's off-patent. It's really cheap. And your doctor will just have to find some of the protocols that are available. If you write to me and message me, I can show you some websites and contacts for your doctor to get.
I want to dispel one of them. This about anti-vaxxers. A person who wants to take a vaccine and wants to have a discussion about the vaccines is not an anti-vaxxer. They want the vaccines. They just want to make sure that they're making the right decisions.
Yep.
That's what they want to do. And so look, the people who look, the anti-vaxxers out here don't believe in any vaccines. They don't believe in anything like that. That's their decision. I don't agree with you. But people who want a vaccine and but want to question and have that conversation with medical professions, and that in the privacy of their the doctor's surgery, they're not anti-vaxxers.
Right.
So
Completely right. Warren, you have self-imposed a time off social media for the next week or two. How much of that is you being, I guess, contrite, and how much of that is actually just for looking after yourself, given your previous experiences, which affected you so deeply?
Yeah, it is about looking after myself. Look, the only thing I'm contrite about is I could have picked a better word. That's it.
Right.
But my argument against that journalist, I'm 100% behind. I have not changed my mind on that. It is about, I've had a pretty rough week. As I said, a really great friend of mine's passed away, and we probably won't be able to attend the funeral and stuff. And it was good. I had to take that because I knew that there was going to be a lynch mob and a bunch of hungry wolves barking at my door. So being off the social media gives me time to work on myself.
Yeah, good.
And I'll tell you what, I was really a bit down yesterday. You really know when you've got great friends when people, even if they disagree with you, right? Yeah. And I've got a couple of mates who we have arguments and disagreements about a lot of things, different things. And they just rung me up, and we had great conversations yesterday, and I felt really good afterwards.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm glad you're doing the right thing there and looking after yourself, and encourage everybody to do the same. If you reach out to a friend and somebody who will just listen and not try and tell you what to do, but just be there for you and help support you through tough times. Especially these lockdowns and this crazy decade that we're 2 years into is just really, really taxing on everybody. So don't think you're weak or not able to, be average. That is average. That is normal. Everybody's doing it tough right now, and just to be there for each other is good. And follow Warren's advice and take some time off social media if that's one of the sources of things that add too much weight to your shoulders, because it's a toxic cesspool, especially Twitter. And stop watching the news. They're just trying to make you depressed and afraid non-stop.
Well, this is the whole thing. Everything is being, and this is where I'm really paid off with the politicians and the bureaucrat. There's a couple of things that has been proven. One is, thank God we're not in the European Union where it's run by the bureaucracy, because we've just seen what happens when you do get run by the bureaucracy. Some of the politicians have got to stop using excuses like this. Oh, we listen to the science. Well, what's the science in regard to I can't dance with my wife, but I can go to a brothel? Give me a break. And some of these idiotic things, Oh, well, if kids weren't able to be infected, then why did we stop them from going to school? Stop with this hypocrisy and stop with this double thing, because it is confusing people. And this is one of the big reasons why Aboriginals hadn't taken up the vaccines, is because they didn't. They get, this person saying this and then this person saying, then the same people have changed their mind overnight. Stop with the mismessaging. I say, look, people, trust yourselves. Go and have your conversations with the person that you probably trust the most, your local doctor, who's been your doctor for ages. talk to them, have those conversations and make your decision.
Yep. No, very well said. Warren, thank you so much for your time tonight on Pellowe Talk. Any final words before we say goodnight?
Look, it's great to see you again, David. Mate, since we hadn't spoken last time, you've gotten a bit flash. Look at you. Look at that. Look at that. And also to all the people out there, look after yourselves, be safe, and trust yourselves and have those conversations.
Yep. Well, thanks for calling a spade on Ben Eltham. That one word was regrettable, but you're absolutely right. He was. It was a very poor display of character and judgment, and the fact that they're completely unrepentant is the real thing here. You're repentant. You've said sorry. You've deleted your tweet, and as far as I'm concerned, there's forgiveness when somebody shows that kind of maturity.
Well, it's a Christian thing. Two things about a Christian is we do believe in redemption. People make mistakes. We do believe they can fix it. We don't believe that, some of these people who lose their jobs because they said something when they were teenagers, just bizarre. And we do believe in forgiveness. And I just find it really strange. And also, we don't believe that we know everything. Sometimes, and this has happened to me. I've spoken to someone, and I said, "This is what I believe in." Then they said, "Did you think about this?" And I went, "No, I didn't actually." So then I went back and did the sums again. What's wrong with doing that? You may come back with the same answer, but you may also change your answer. And I just find it mad that people destroy people's lives and their jobs. I'm a businessman. I have people working for me, and I can tell you the worst thing I have to do, and I just drives and it makes me, I can't sleep at night sometimes, is when you've got to put people off because they got families, they got mortgages, and it's really tough. So I don't know how these people go like mad dogs and just destroy people's lives. It's bizarre.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much, good sir, and good night.
Thank you. Take care.
You too. Well, that's Warren Mundine, Order of Australia recipient, Indigenous leader, business leader, and really great political strategist. And very blessed and privileged to call him a friend and to have him occasionally on Pellowe Talk. Obviously prayers and wishes for him, along with everybody else who's doing it tough. We can put on a brave show sometimes, but the smart thing to do is to step back and just focus on what's important and make sure you recover that strength before you get back into the fight and fight well for what's good. Listen, coming up next on The Good Source, you'll only see it on The Good Source Facebook page, is Topher Field's Slow Chat. And tonight he is talking with Victorian Member of Parliament David Limbrick from the Liberal Democrats, the party that Campbell Newman and others are leaving the Liberal Party for and joining because they actually want liberal small government values, which the Liberal Party certainly no longer offers anywhere. And my appreciation to all the people who are still members of the Liberal Party and trying to redeem it and change its value. You're in the right place and you're doing a good thing. But you don't have to vote for the Liberal Party while you're trying to make it better. So tune into the Good Source Facebook page to watch Topher Field have a good long chat. Monica Smith being arrested in Melbourne. It's going to be a very interesting chat tonight there. So that'll be awesome. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram, YouTube at Dave Pellowe. And it's very great to bring this to you. And again, a big thanks to the Good Source partners who will actually just put their hand in their pocket each month. And I invite you to do that as well. If you like this kind of show, if you want more of it, please consider becoming a partner for $5, $10, $20 a month or a lot more. And that will just help us to increase our staff, increase our shows and articles, and bring you more quality stuff. Well, it's just about 8 o'clock now, so wonderful to switch over to the Good Source Facebook page and watch Topher Field. But that's it from me tonight, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Today, we need a special kind of courage. Not the kind needed in battle, but a kind which makes us stand up for everything that we know is right, everything that is true and honest. We need the kind of courage that can withstand the subtle corruption of the cynics, so that we can show the world that we are not afraid of the future.